look at that too. It's got the Alex Straza up there. This fucking dragon expansion and shit. Is this actually going to be what we're going to get? Everything cut from Cataclysm. Alright, boys. Let's see what this is.
Within Cataclysm, we were told that we would get the Abyssal Maw as a raid during the first patch.
I remember that.
What is the Abyssal Maw? Well, during the questing experience in one of the first zones of the expansion, Vashj'ir has you eventually wander to a whirlpool leading to the Abyssal Maw, a portal to the elemental plane of water. And there, we fight various creatures of the Old God and even try to assist the elemental lord of water himself, Neptulon. But at the end of the fight, we fail, and he's dragged away by a massive kraken.
If we ever have a chance, anytime we deliver a patch, we don't want to leave anyone out. So one of the biggest things is trying to always deliver a 5-player dungeon along with a raid. And patch 4.0 won't be any different, so we're planning to deliver a new dungeon, which would be Abyssal Maw. Abyssal Maw will be a continuation of the story that players are playing through in Vashj'ir. So in Vashj'ir, we already have a dungeon that's shipped.
Yeah, it's really disappointing we never had that happen. I feel like there's it's always sad to think back. It's like, instead of having the Abyssal Maw and some badass, like, Lovecraftian horror that we have to fight, we got Dragon Soul. Yeah. So instead of that, we got a bunch of reskinned fucking bosses from random trash mobs and the Spine of Deathwing. How about that?
With Cataclysm, the Throne of the Tides. So players are going to play through that and already get a base of the story of what's going on. And it's the same issue that we're dealing with in Hyjal, where basically you're going to play through the quests all the way through, and when you get into the dungeon, you're going to actually know what's happening. So it's not going to feel like something that's foreign to you. Oh,
I thought they did a really good job with that. I remember whenever they added like patch 4.2 and like the Molten Front offensive, I thought it was really cool how like the server would come together, and it was like the day that you were able to actually go in and use the portal, and like everybody was logging on that day. It was really fucking cool, man.
It's nothing like Oculus. You're going to see the layout here of what this dungeon looks like, and it's it's separate areas, like almost like underwater. We've got these risen areas, and players are going to play on these individual areas, and then they're going to travel from one to the next.
Wow.
So you'll get a view of what that looks like here. We're planning on 4 bosses.
I mean, they kind of did that with Ashara's Eternal Palace. Like, if you look at this, in a way, some of the design does look a little bit like Ashara's Eternal Palace, and you do actually teleport around in that raid to different areas through the water, and it was cool. Like, I actually thought the EP was a great raid. I did. Like, what did you guys think? Like, back in BFA, for people that played it, did you guys like it? Because I thought it was a good raid. Yeah.
From one to the next. So you'll get a view of what that looks like here. We're planning on 4 bosses for this. Anything between 3 and 5 we feel like always feels pretty good for a dungeon.
I agree with that.
So this is a look at the layout. Same deal here. This is what we start with and how we get things going.
So they had this like really planned out.
That blue area is basically like a chasm, because this dungeon takes place underwater. The entire dungeon is similar to our entire first zone of Vashj'ir. So everything about this will be under the water in the elemental plane of water.
It's too bad they didn't make questing in Vashj'ir better, because like the problem was Hyjal, whenever Hyjal came out, because back in Cataclysm, basically Blizzard, so in Burning Crusade, Blizzard made the mistake of funneling the entire endgame population of the entire server into one little itty-bitty zone in Hellfire Peninsula. And if you notice, in Wrath of the Lich King, you had Howling Fjord and Borean Tundra. And in Cataclysm, you had Vashj'ir and Hyjal. And the reason for that is because they learned their fucking lesson with that. But it was disappointing that Vashj'ir's leveling was so bad, because the truth is, like, the zone was fucking badass. Vashj'ir was one of the, like, to go back, like, which zone is the most enjoyable to go back and just explore around in? Absolutely Vashj'ir. It was really, really fucking cool, and I think people forget the scope of it. Like, Vashj'ir was really kind of like almost 3 zones that all came together. It felt like they had a lot of plans for, like, where Vashj'ir was going to go, but then after the game came out, and people didn't like it, it just never happened. I think that's probably what it was. And it's disappointing, because I actually think that it would be as simple as if the questing was better in Vashj'ir, people would have liked the zone. But because the questing was worse than Hyjal, then Vashj'ir was forever known as a bad zone.
And we have a ton of new tech that we're introducing with Cataclysm that helps deal with players being underwater. Whenever you touch the ground,
really good.
You actually lock to the ground on the bottom. And then playing with your character at that point feels just like you would be on land. So we've done all new animations for the races, so when they walk underwater, they feel like they're actually moving through the water plane. But for you as a player, you're not dealing with odd camera angles or creatures that are swimming above you or 3D, perception issues that might feel weird. So we want to get that vibe and that feeling that players are underwater, but historically, obviously, underwater combat has not been a strong point. So we wanted to make sure that doing something like this didn't affect the gameplay. And I think we can definitely say that we know that's going to work out well because we've already seen it in Vashj'ir.
This was supposed to lead into the raid, which originally was even supposed to deal with N'Zoth in some way.
Holy
but
shit,
the raid
this
was
was
even
the Abyssal
partially
raid.
done and can be found in the files.
Oh my god.
But after feedback during the beta of how players absolutely hated the underwater combat of the zone, even one underwater boss could be seen as too much for the raid.
See, like, they had the underwater boss. They had that looks really fucking cool. Like, holy shit, that actually looks awesome. Wow. And again, it does look a lot kind of like, if you take it at an abstract, it looks a lot kind of like Ashar's Eternal Palace, man. It does. I didn't hate it at all. Well, the thing is, like, they had an underwater boss in that raid. It was like the Blackwater Behemoth or something like that. And in my opinion, I think it was good. It was an underwater boss that was actually a good boss. And even whenever you take it out and you really think about, like, most video games fuck up underwater combat. There's always something wrong with it. It's always annoying. It's always dysfunctional or something like that. And I thought the Behemoth fight was good. Yeah, I definitely, it's like there's a reason why everybody dreaded the Water Temple in Zelda, okay? And it wasn't just because you had to carry the girl around. It's also because it was fucking annoying. Except New World, never mind. Yeah, New World, it's really underwater.
And while they did like that they could reuse a lot of assets for the raid, making it extremely easy to make, they felt it would pair in comparison to the Firelands. So they eventually just put all the work into the Firelands, putting all the boss numbers that they were going to work on in the Abyssal Maw into the Firelands. And then they just cut out the Abyssal Maw itself.
I feel like Firelands was really, really cool. I don't entirely disagree with that. Firelands was really, really fucking cool. I loved Firelands. Unironic Firelands Andy. Yes, it was so fucking badass. I mean, honestly, I wish they would have done both. It would have been really cool to know, like, more of the story and everything. And it's good that, like, at least in a little bit of the, like, it's showing right now, like, a little bit of the, like, Shaman class Order Hall stuff, they had Neptulon and all that stuff, in that thing too, which was really cool.
Because it was cut, we didn't actually get to know what happened to him until Legion, when he shows up and we find out that he just kind of escaped himself off screen.
Oh, how convenient.
Although short, something to mention, Firelands was intended to launch at the start of the expansion, with Skywall, Bastion of Twilight, originally called Grim Batal, which may imply that the dungeon was supposed to be a raid, or the raid itself was supposed to take place there, instead of wherever the portal at the top of the spire teleports you, and Blackwing Descent as shown at the BlizzCon announcement. Deathwing was given a humanoid model that he was supposed to show up in, however, we only ever see this model in-game once.
Yeah, and that's what's so disappointing about it. It's like, that's what I was kind of saying the other day whenever I did, like, the tier list, and I didn't rate Deathwing that high. It's because we never even talked to him. There's no story for Deathwing at all in the game. Like, yeah, there's a story in the books, and Deathwing has a story. It's very, very complex. But whenever you actually look at Cataclysm, and you see how the player interacts with Deathwing, well, he's either killing you or you're killing him, and that's it. That's all there is to it. You don't even know, like, a lot of people probably didn't even know, like, why do we have to kill Deathwing? Like, I guess because he's mad? Like, what the fuck? Like, possessed by an old god? How does that work? And, like, having, like, for example, having Ashara, like, talk to you while you're getting ready to do Ashara's Eternal Palace, and you get to know a bit more of the character. They have, like, that cinematic where they show, like, how she became, allied with N'Zoth. And it's the same thing as with a lot of other things. Like Arthas is a great example as well.
Which is with a bunch of drunkards telling stories about their encounters with Deathwing.
Yeah.
With one of them telling a story about how they punched Deathwing in the face.
Boom.
Funny enough, as they tell you about his humanoid form, which is seen nowhere else in game, this could almost act as evidence in his favor that he did in fact punch Deathwing in the face. We did get to see him originally in this form in the Twilight Highlands quest where you and Alexstrasza fought against him, as making him humanoid allowed you a chance to actually fight him. However, when they brought the game to live, they fought in dragon forms, while you were forced to fight a random chromatic dragon instead.
Holy shit, I had no idea. That's so crazy. What the fuck?
The biggest tie-in with the artifacts, and then this is actually in the end game,
This is
going to unlock
yeah, I didn't see it.
potential for your paths, the paths of the Titan, which I think Greg went over in one of his earlier. Okay, we're really not going to talk about that much then, but it gives you more flexibility in that system that you know nothing about, but it's very cool. And secondly, it's going to give you some very cool, unique rewards. Things like vanity pets. You might have a little T-Rex that's, skeleton, or...
Yeah, this was a really big L. Archaeology was a massive fucking L. I cannot express how much of an L it was. It was so fucking terrible. It was one of the worst things that Blizzard has ever added into the game. And they made it slightly better in Mists of Pandaria, but they also made it slightly worse at the same time by adding in pristine artifacts. And at least in Cataclysm, you could get some really cool items, right? Like you would get the Zenrock. I think that's the main cool item. And then also the mount, the blue Karaji or Aquamarine, Ultramarine battle tank, whatever the fuck it is, from the Tol'vir solves. I did so fucking many Tol'vir solves, you have no idea. It took me months of farming archaeology to get that. And like the different rewards that archaeology had, it's like there was a staff and like a sword. Like this shit is so fucking rare that like I only have one of the items. Me. And like that was back whenever I was a complete fucking degenerate playing the game all the time. I only have one item. It's nuts.
You might have instant travel to a dungeon because you discovered an underground passage.
You're going to be able to get these artifacts and take them to these different world groups that we'll talk about more later that have to do with the different paths of the Titans, and they'll help players advance along the Titan progression. So the paths of the Titans are a new way for players to kind of customize their characters. The idea here...
I think the funny thing about the Path of the Titans is that if Blizzard introduced Path of the Titans next, like in 9.2, everyone would be like, oh, fuck, another system? Oh, no, what are they gonna make us farm now? No, fuck. And is it account-wide? Don't tell me. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, fuck! And, like, if they had announced this, like, right now, people would lose their fucking minds. They would be so fucking mad because it's like just people are just so against the systems. But it's funny to me to think of this, to think of how people view it now, because I remember whenever all this shit got announced and like everybody was pogged out of their mind about the Path of the Titans. They're like, oh my god, dude, I'm gonna be able to, and like people just like invented these ideas that they would be able to do. They're like, I'm gonna be able to turn into a fucking a fucking metal dwarf because I do dwarf archaeology. It's like, shut the fuck up. Like, who told you this? And like people are just excited about the possibilities. And it's funny to see now that anytime that it's, oh, there's a new system to customize your character, it's like, fuck. Here we go again.
Is that while we're doing a whole lot of new talents in the expansion, we aren't actually extending the trees any farther than they are right now. So the 51-point talents that we have now will continue to be the 51-point talents in the expansion. You will get 5 new talent points to spend along the way as you get up to level 85.
Wow.
But rather than deepening the talent trees further, we're going to give you a little bit of a chance to get more points in the talents that we already have right now to make sure you're not stretched too thin. And then introduce the Pass of the Titans, which is a completely new type of advancement. Every player is going to be able to choose which path they want to follow, and they're not limited by class. So one of the interesting things about this system...
This is Covenants. It's Covenants. They can choose which path they want to go down, and they're not limited by their class. It's fucking Covenants. They finally... Yeah, we already got Path of the Titans, guys. It's Path of the Covenants.
Is that a rogue, for example, would be able to choose any one of the paths. So, some rogues might choose one path, others might choose another one. There also might be priests that are choosing the same path. So there are a bunch of new abilities and kind of passive bonuses, that sort of stuff, in each one of those paths that you'll be able to choose between. So it adds kind of another dimension to your character customization.
I can just imagine, people moaning and groaning, oh no, they're gonna add this, oh fuck, dude. And then, which one, there's gonna be the best one for raid, the best one for PvP, and they don't let you respec. Oh no, man. Path of the Titans is gonna kill WoW. And it's so funny because anybody who's saying that now, actually anybody who was saying that then would be considered insane because everybody was hyped up for it. But anybody not saying that now would also be considered insane because it's happened so many fucking times.
Titans was a system that would add a path around the glyph system we had at the time. This system, funny enough, was going to be the first expansion long progression system. Something that has kind of become a norm in WoW ever since Legion.
Sure
Players
has.
would need to first find these special glyphs by doing archaeology and doing quest lines for cults that worship their respective titan. Power locked behind locking yourself into a specific covenant. Sounds kind of familiar to something we have today. This progression system gave players a choice of a path, each to do with a titan. These paths would unlock by doing things like questing, raiding, PvP, and even professions, maxing out each week. Then with these special glyph slots, players could insert glyphs of increased ranks, 1 to 10, each rank having 2 to 3 choices at first, with the devs saying it would increase your player's power by about 20% over the entire expansion.
That's a
which
lot.
These days seems rather small for an entire expansion system. Although,
yeah, usually it's like a character, you know what it's like? It's like you look at yourself in the mirror with a full beard, and it's yeah, I'm a real man. And then you shave it all off, and it's you feel like a little bitch. Have you ever done that? I've had that happen to me many times back whenever I was younger, and I would shave regularly. Yeah, you feel like a little bitch after you do it. That's the way that you feel whenever the pre-patch comes in and they remove the corruptions, or they remove the legendary weapon traits, or they remove whatever it is. There's a new stat squish. You feel just like that after you had to fucking shave your whole beard off, and you're just looking there like a little fucking precious little bitch.
it becomes extremely understandable when you see actually some of the abilities in one of the paths they showed us.
Yeah.
Golganeth. For rank 1, we have Earth's Embrace, which reduces physical damage taken by 4%, and Battle Harden, reducing durations of bleeds and stuns by 20%.
That seems good.
Rank 2, we have Medic, giving your bandages 30%
PoE.
extra healing. Fortification, a 5-minute buff which reduces nearby allies' damage taken by 10% for 6 seconds. And rank 3, Breakthrough. 5-minute cooldown to increase your damage by 10% for 10 seconds, only usable after you deal a crit.
I think it's so funny to listen to these, because every single time that I listen to these, I'm like fantasizing about the tweets that like Max or Zyronic or Scripe or somebody would make about these, like before they go live. They're like, please don't fucking add this into the game, or everybody in my entire guild is gonna have to use this one, and everybody's gonna use it, and then it gets added into the game, they ignore the fucking changes, and it's just it's just exactly what people expect. Do you think people will be mad if they brought back glyphs next expansion? Well, we already have glyphs, it's just that glyphs are cosmetic. Like, we have glyphs right now. They're just a cosmetic thing that, like, oh, when you charge, man, there's like a fucking line of fire where you charge. It's so cool, bro. And, like, I'm fine with that. You know, it's a cosmetic or whatever. It's fine. I just, like, to me, I want character customization that I can change when I want to. Because what I really, really, really don't want is I don't want to be forced into some sort of play style. I don't want to be forced into saying, oh, well, this is the way that this is, like, I had to pick this one, or I have to pick that one, or whatever, because they're trying to, like, have some they're trying to, like, stop min-maxers. That's what really sucked. And it's like, that's what sucked with, like, the artifact weapons, is, like, you wouldn't have them all leveled up the same point. And, like, even that one wasn't really that bad, but, like, it still sucked. And then with BFA, it was, like, kind of the same stuff, but it wasn't really. Oh, yeah, no, it was even worse because you had Azerite gear. And if you wanted to respec your Azerite gear, it was a ton of gold. So, like, most people would just get multiple pieces of like you would have, like, 4 helmets. You guys might not remember this, right? If you didn't play in BFA, but people would run around with, like, 4 helmets. That, you know, like, 1 for each spec, and then also the PvP spec. That's what I did. It was the dumbest fucking thing ever. It was awful. Yeah, making changes. Yeah, breaking the game for 1,000 people. It's like, well, we can't. It's like it's the conduit thing that I said. You know, well, we can't let people change their conduits, or then everybody's just gonna be changing their conduits all the time. It's gonna be fucking. That's all they're gonna do. It's so fucking stupid. It's just so fucking stupid, man. It's gonna be chaos, yeah.
The system was scrapped pretty early on, as that was all we were shown before it just vanished. And with their vanishment, the Path of the Titan system was simply replaced with just the Prime Glyph system, which just acted as second major glyphs, but even stronger. Although most of them were just major glyphs moved up, with new major glyphs created in order to take their place. Something to note, the system sounds almost exactly like the Covenants of Shadowlands. Yeah. However, the only different thing is there being no cosmetics. But locking yourself to a specific group that affects your power by up to 20%, while also locking it behind quest content that seemingly takes some time, it almost seems like the Path of the Titans might have later been reworked into what we see today in Covenants. Originally, the War of the Ancients dungeon was supposed to be a raid, although what we know of it is extremely minor. But with how much lore significance the War of the Ancients has...
I always thought it was funny that this dungeon had more effort put into it than Dragon's Soul. And it's not even close. Let's be honest, it's not even close. This dungeon was so fucking badass whenever it came out. And I think it was better designed than Dragon's Soul was.
And how much effort they obviously put into the dungeon, it's easy to see why they were trying to turn this into a raid.
So, Battle for Gilneas is one of those. The idea being that players are going to be able to fight through the city and the streets of Gilneas City and take control of the different districts and fight it out.
Gilneas, as originally shown, was supposed to be a full-on battleground within the city itself, acting almost as a full-on city siege between two factions.
Can you imagine how many line-of-sight problems that would be? It's like you're turning around and, like, you accidentally clip into a mailbox and your camera goes, whoop! Yeah, good call, Blizzard. Yeah, this is a better idea.
Maybe even being an epic battleground, as it was still supposed to be a capture point battleground, but within the whole city. And with a city of that size, it would have to require lots of people within it. But what we ended up getting instead was Arathi Basin 2 Electric Boogaloo with 2 less bases. During Cataclysm, a player made a request about Warlock Pets, asking for the possibility of an incubi. For those of you who don't know, the Sayad is a race of demons found within the Burning Legion. The ones we see of them are all females, the succubi. But there is a theoretical male version called the incubi. However, with little references to them, there's no models or official artwork made for them outside of some possible concept art. Players have wished to see these demons for a long time. And after so much request, one of the community managers responded to the ever-growing thread saying that Blizzard had plans to soon offer a choice between male and female versions of all Warlock demons.
That's crazy that they had planned it that far. So this is something that they were like, yeah, you know, we gotta get around to it. Yeah, we got somebody on the team working on it. Well, you know, it soon finally came. I won't make that joke.
Although with no time frame given, and it being over 10 years later, I'm pretty sure they scrapped the idea.
Yeah.
Our plan is actually to have 3 battlegrounds with the expansion. So one of those things that we want to do in terms of adding more in-game content than we've had before is to add more battlegrounds than we've ever added in the past.
Speaking of battlegrounds, there was originally supposed to be 3 with Cataclysm. However, the third one never came out, where you would push carts in a mining-based battleground within Stranglethorn Jungle, a diamond mine. Planned seemingly even since vanilla, it was a key point marked on the early location map in the Warcraft diary.
Oh, fuck.
You would think this place never came out, but it did. Silver Shard Mines.
Oh, shit, look at that, too. It's got the Alex Straza up there. So I wonder if this is going to be, like, if we actually do get this this fucking dragon expansion and shit, is this actually going to be what we're going to get? Is this going to be it? Yeah, planned since Warcraft 3. Well, this is Cataclysm, but it's still been quite a while, yeah. I hope so. I think this is where it is in everybody's minds.
You would think this place never came out, but it did. Silver Shard Mines, one of the 2 battlegrounds that released in Pandaria, was originally going to be released in Cataclysm, shown as a Cataclysm battleground where it worked pretty much the same as it does now, except a slightly different shape, and with the rocks that could be attacked to block paths for a bit. And it makes so much sense too. The entire mine looks nothing like Pandaria. Yeah. Especially with the massive amount of goblin architecture, rocks that look straight out of Deepholm, and of course the literal troll ruins that were just copy-pasted models from Stranglethorn.
Holy shit.
Whatever happened to this place that made it get delayed for an entire 2 years, it likely had to do with those rocks, as creating collision where players are nearby can be difficult to get to work right.
So Deepholm is like Tom was trying to explain, it's not actually connected to Azeroth, it's in the elemental plane of Earth. The connection that it has to Azeroth is where Deathwing actually broke through the ceiling and actually came into Azeroth, thereby causing the Cataclysm. And players will actually be able to use that scar left on the Earth on Azeroth as an actual way to get back and forth into Deepholm.
I feel like what's really funny about this is, like, they have all these, like, super fucking cool ideas, and they're like, yeah, dude, so there's gonna be, like, fucking Deathwing is gonna burst out of the fucking ground, man, and then you're gonna be able to go in there to go to the Firelands and into the elemental planes, dude. You go right in where Deathwing, and then, like, now, whenever it actually comes out, it's like, yeah, go down to the Caverns of Time to fight Deathwing. Well, why is he down there? Oh, he's not. Well, then why is the dungeon there? All right, guys. Well, it's out. Hope you enjoy it. There it is. Don't forget, it's in the Caverns of Time. Deepholm is so boring.
So here you can see a little schematic of the layout of what we're planning for Deepholm. There in the center is the Temple of Earth, which is actually it's an important place in Deepholm. It's a central location. It's now overrun by Twilight's Hammer, and that's basically where Deathwing was kind of nursed back to bring him back to the state of what he needed to be to break back into Azeroth and cause the Cataclysm.
Deepholm lore-wise is where Deathwing was held, with its portal being within the Maelstrom, until he was able to break free and cause the Cataclysm, even though the amazing cinematic showed him coming out of some random mountain, seemingly near the Barrens.
So Deepholm is a subterranean-looking environment, so it's almost going to feel like an enclosed cave, but it's huge. As far as scale goes, it's probably the biggest zone that we're building for Cataclysm, especially since it's going to be the hub of all 5 of the new zones. We're going to allow flying in there.
That would have been pretty cool if you were able to do that, right? Is like you go down into Deepholm and like you're in the elemental planes. Like that actually would have been really cool if they, because yeah, we didn't really get like capital cities in Cataclysm. Like we just had Stormwind. I actually didn't mind it that much because it felt like it was almost like old WoW. It's like, all right, we're back in Stormwind. The boys are back together, you know, dueling outside the gates, and it was fine. Like, yeah, it was totally good with me, too. I was okay with it. Like, if they make Stormwind the main city hub again... actually, I don't like Stormwind, to be completely honest with you guys. I always think Ironforge is better. It's way more open, etc. But, yeah, Stormwind just was the... It's a shithole, man. Every time I'm in Stormwind... I think about the fact that I'm not in Lordaeron. You know what I mean? That's the way I feel about it.
Even though it's going to feel like an interior, you're going to be able to fly with your flying mount. As we mentioned, this is basically after Deathwing kind of went crazy, ended up here, and this is where you're gonna get to play through and figure out the story of kind of how he's gotten back to where he is now. The Temple of Earth in the center is also going to play a huge part in that role. And like we mentioned, this is the central hub. So there's actually going to be portals in Deepholm that will take you to Vashj'ir, to Hyjal, Twilight Highlands, and Old Doom, and you'll be able to go back and forth between those as a quick form of travel.
Deepholm was actually planned.
They just, we didn't have time for that, so we just put all the portals in Stormwind. And there's like a guy there, he's part of the shamans, and he can make portals to wherever you want to go. So you just go over to Stormwind and click on that. Shaman does it. It is what it is. Right there. There it is. Yeah, there's shaman portals.
And to be a major hub for Cataclysm, much like the portal room in Dalaran, with us using the place as a way to teleport to all the other zones. And it makes sense too, as we'd be working to repair the damage Deathwing did so we could possibly imprison him again.
Yeah,
although going a completely other way of the story, Deepholm was not used, even though it had plenty of room amongst its side rooms for everything that a hub would need. It was obviously designed to house a whole bunch of portals, but only ended up having about
I never
one
really
or two.
thought of that.
Vashj'ir easily is one of the biggest zones for scrap
I didn't
stuff,
know that.
so we got a lot here to cover. First, the water combat was going to be overhauled in order to make the zone much more enjoyable.
We will make sure that it is not annoying to play underwater.
That never happened. Instead,
I actually didn't think it was that bad. Am I the only person who thought it was totally fine? Yeah, I think that, honestly, here's my opinion. Again, if Vashj'ir had faster questing than Hyjal, everybody would have loved Vashj'ir. And I really do think it is that simple. Hyjal was way faster, it was way more efficient, the questing sucked in Vashj'ir, and everybody hated the zone.
Blizzard just ended up launching Vashj'ir as is, and cut all future underwater content they had planned. Originally, the focus was supposed to be the city, with the sunken city of Vashj'ir.
After the Sundering hit, and water flooded Ashrath, it actually ended up on the sea floor, and it's been down there for a number of years, and only recently has it just started to come to light with the Cataclysm.
However, that never really happened. The city we arrived to only being an extremely minor part of the full story for the subsection of one of the zones.
It was so small.
Continue on with Vashj'ir,
Yeah.
we have a few things about the ancient gods there. The giant shelled beast there,
Those
who,
were
fun
so
fact,
cool.
used the Cthulhu model as their eyeball. These creatures were meant to be so much more, and there was a lot cut about them. So let's go over this.
We're also planning to have selected areas in Vashj'ir that are actually indoor, kind of like these big. There's creatures down there that no one really knows a lot about it yet, but they're ancient, and they've been there for a long time, and we're going to find out what's happening with them through the quest flow in the zone.
First off, we were supposed to have far less water sections with the zone originally, with water being a majority, but not all of it. A good portion of this would be spent inside these Naga cities, situated within these shells, shown originally in this bit of concept art. Second, we were supposed to find an old god corrupted version of one of these gods, a twisted amalgamation
really
of
cool.
undersea life, acting as the end boss of the zone. However, this was moved to the Abyssal Maw Ray to act as one of its bosses, and as mentioned before, that never came out. Third, we were actually supposed to have a major hub within one of these ancient gods, as when we arrived to some of the Naga, they've turned them into their home bases, and so we would do the same, possibly even making it a major city.
Is this in game? Yeah, is this in game? It is? Where is it? Fuck, it's the last Vashj'ir zone. Holy fuck. It's inside the turtle, of course. Oh my god, dude. I haven't seen this in years. I probably did the quest once and that was it. I don't remember this? No, not at all.
However, with the
Wow.
layout of the inner shell, I totally understand why they cut it. A giant circle-shaped city with no buildings and no flying sounds horrible. Also, spending all day inside a fish's body doesn't sound very fun.
Yeah.
And enough about a zone full of fish. Fishing was supposed to be updated with little events and special quests. However, this would not come to fruition. At least till Legion, when we finally got at least some little fishing events with the baits and special fish, as well as the fishing artifact with its own little questline, scenario, and artifact tree. That required quite the long grind in order to max out.
I thought that the Legion fishing weapon was awesome. I really did. Like, there were so many like little cool things in Legion. It's as I said, it's always so shocking to think back that there was more content for archaeology and fishing in Legion than there was for all of the professions combined in Shadowlands. That is insane.
Uldum originally was supposed to be a zone focused on the Explorers League and the newly founded Reliquary fighting it off against each other for the most powerful artifacts. of course leaning more into archaeology, as these two factions were the archaeological factions, and the zone itself is an ancient Egyptian zone, so it was perfect, all over a giant superweapon. Although instead, Blizzard seemingly scrapped this storyline, rather late too, shoving in instead a whole bunch of Indiana Jones references. Rather well shown by the fact it is the zone with by far the least voice acting, and the least serious out of all the zones, overall acting as a failed comedy more than a compelling story. Ever since the Cataclysm beta...
I'm gonna be honest, like, I don't know anything really about the Cataclysm story. Honestly, like, I don't even know why we went to Dragon Soul. Like, I mean, I guess, like, because Thrall got the magic pancake that can defeat Deathwing, and it's like, but why was he there? Why did he go there? Like, why didn't he go there before Thrall got the pancake? Like, I never gave a shit. I don't know why, I just literally never gave a shit about the Cataclysm storyline.
We've had a few unused voice lines. First of those being the unused traitors. In Cataclysm, you find within your ranks traitors, members of the Twilight Hammer who've infiltrated the factions. Archbishop Benedictus was planned to be the Alliance traitor, and Grand Magister Romoth was planned to be the Horde traitor.
Romoth, you stand accused of high treason to Silvermoon, and of being a member of the Twilight Council.
Oh, shit.
The long knives come out. Is there proof to these accusations?
This document. It's your handwriting. I'd recognize it anywhere.
Damn.
You leave me no choice, then. It's a pity, really. I had plans for our people. There is a war coming, and I've chosen to be on the winning side.
You disgust me, traitor!
You forced my hand a little early, perhaps. But I think you'll find I'm still playing from a position of strength! Feel my wrath!
However, they seem to have dropped this idea early on.
So we never felt it.
Only to then use the idea
how about
anyway,
that?
Except instead of the Horde traitor being
He was
Romoth, they
pissed.
instead gave the role to a random nobody named Saranok the Mystic.
Oh,
Romoth
great.
in lore is a blood elf who was a staunch Kel'Thas supporter, and didn't change his mind on him until later on in the Burning Crusade, but was shown to be very loyal to Lor'themar after he decided to change his mind, and so his betrayal didn't make much sense. Although they could have just easily said he was pretending to be loyal to Lor'themar to gain his trust, but honestly it could have gone either way. Onto some more voice lines.
I always find that to be bad. Oh, they were just pretending to like this character? I feel like that's just an excuse for bad storytelling. If you can't look back and see the foreshadowing, you should be able to. You should be. It's a cop-out. Yeah, it's just a cop-out.
Have voice lines from Bane speaking on the gate. That being the Great Gate, the massive gate that separates the Northern Barrens from Mulgore.
Open the gate! I will not let a single human step past me into Mulgore! My people will not be harmed! Sound the drums of war! For Taurajo!
This event seemingly having been in retaliation
Now
to
we
the
know how
Alliance's
Trump got
attack
the
on
idea.
Camp Taurajo. However, with Bane taking a very small role in Cataclysm, it seems they may have intended for him to take a larger role, especially after his father's death.
I feel like they've intended to have Bane take a larger role for the last 4 expansions. You know what I mean?
As soon as they did bring him to the story, they seemingly gave him a full 180 from their original idea, as he was staunchly against any kind of retaliation against the Alliance. This explains quite well why there's this massive detailed wall to Mulgore that is used for literally nothing. This could have been an extremely epic moment with him opening the gate to unleash Tauren armies upon the Alliance within the Barrens.
That would be cool.
However, instead, the orcs
that
simply
would've been
kicked
cool.
the Alliance out of the Southern Barrens on their own later on.
As I know it's kind of daunting to think, oh, I have to enchant my thing, and I have to put gems in it, and now I have to reforge it. But reforging is going to be relatively cheap on the scale of things, so you will need someone to do it, and it's going to be given to blacksmiths, leatherworkers, tailors, jewel crafters, and engineers. And so each one of those professions gets a specific chunk of items that they get to reforge. For example, blacksmiths get to do plate and weapons, and engineers would do trinkets and ranged weapons.
Originally,
That would make
reforging was
sense.
going to be a profession thing instead of being an ethereal trader. You would need to go to a player with profession relevant to the piece of gear to enchant it in a way. a jewel crafter to reforge your...
It's probably good they didn't do that. All things considered, like, it's just probably good they didn't do that. It sounds like there's a lot of things. It's like, whenever you're sitting in there fucking together down with the boys, like, yeah, bro, so, like, you remember back in, like, Dungeons and Dragons, whenever you'd have to, you know, have, like, your friend who's a blacksmith repair your armor because it got broken in a fight? Well, what if we did that in the game? They're like, oh, bro, that's so badass. What if they could put the stats in another stat instead, and the blacksmith could do it for them? And it's like, these ideas, you know, they sound great whenever you're bat chesting, but whenever you just fucking think about it for 5 seconds, you'd realize that they're terrible. Yeah, they're fucking terrible idea. They're fucking annoying.
Rings or necklaces, haste into mastery, a tailor to do so with your cloth, a scribe for your staff, offhand trinkets, a blacksmith for your weapon or plate armor, leather worker for your leather, engineer for your ranged weapons. You get the deal. However, this was scrapped in preference for just an NPC. As with each new piece of gear, you'd have to go out, buy new gems and chants, and then find various different players to reforge all your gear to get the exact hit/expertise cap. Would be kind of exhausting. Cthulhu was one of the most interesting old gods, and so Blizzard planned to bring him back. Within Cho'Gall's and Medan's storyline in the comics, Cho'Gall captured and forced Medan to resurrect the old god's corpse. And since at this point Medan was still planned to be part of the game, and had yet to be scrapped, this lined up perfectly with Cho'Gall planning to be a major villain in the expansion, even being a raid boss for the Bastion of Twilight. Although this never happened, as Medan and his comics were abandoned, and then later retconned. However, in the alpha, you would get whispers from Cthulhu and Silthus, implying his possible return. Overall, Cataclysm feels like it would have been done far better if it was split into 2 expansions, with one focused on the Twilight Hammer and the Followers in Azoth, with it then leading into Deathwing into the Firelands. Maybe it had been done that.
Well, we had the first half. We had that into a half of an expansion, and it wasn't super cool. Like, let's just say that it wasn't super cool.
That way, far less of the content would have been cut, and we could have seen so much more.
It's crazy because, like, dude, I spent so much time playing Cataclysm. I think of any expansion, I probably spent more time playing Cataclysm. It was either either Wrath, Cataclysm, or Mists of Pandaria. One of the 3 of those expansions. That was like whenever I was gaming on WoW every day, every single fucking day. I was gaming on WoW. And just like farming and taking it super seriously and all of that stuff. I love going back and like seeing all the old stuff. And then it's also like really funny whenever you go back and you see the, it's like, oh, this is the path of the Titans. And, like nowadays people would fucking hate something like that. Or just retro, like just reflexively they would hate something like that because we've had so many other systems like this. And it's like, oh, you have to unlock your character progression through archaeology. I gotta go, guys. I have to water my my fish. Yeah, I'll see you later. People hate temporary systems, not permanent. No, I think people just hate shit systems. Like, what I think that players really dislike more than anything is having a system that is fleeting and intentionally sabotaged to make them play longer. Things like Azerite power. Like, if you could have, imagine how much better BFA would have been if the Azerite traits were better balanced. You could trade them like normal. And also, because you couldn't trade Azerite gear at the beginning. And on top of that, you could respec your Azerite gear whenever and however you wanted. You could just go. You just change the spec right there on the fly. It was here, now it's there. And you can even set it to like a little button. So it's like you have presets and all of that. Imagine how good that would have been. And there's a lot of things like that. It's kind of like what I was saying before about like getting stunned, like PoE. It's like, is this fun? Right? Like, I don't think it's like fun to play. And I think Blizzard, like a lot of times, like MMO players, and I think game designers even get into this as well, is that they fixate on the idea of difficulty rather than the idea of fulfillment. And what happens is that they make things hard and nobody wants to beat them. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of what happens, is like you have these raids and people are like demotivated from even trying. Like, who gives a fuck in the first place? And it's the same thing with the system and all of that other stuff. Mythic raiding in a nutshell. Yeah, exactly. They get so scared of power creep that they forget to empower the players. Well, they don't need to worry about power creep, because by the time the expansion's over and they take away all your borrowed power, you feel like you're weaker than what you were in Burning Crusade. Yeah, like, I couldn't imagine, like, it was honestly, like, as I said, man, like, at the very end of I think BFA was the worst, because, like, losing corruptions was, like, so hard to do. Like, losing corruptions hurt so much. And then, like, actually, you know what? No, it was going from the end of Legion, whenever you are this, like, fucking, like, actual multi-planetary Titan destroyer. You are literally a multi-planetary intergalactic Titan destroyer. And you go from that, and you have, like, these legendary boots of fucking, what was it called? It was not Amanthul's Vision, that was the trinket. The fucking boots, what were they called? How do I not remember the boots? The speed boots. What were the speed boots? Agrimar's Stride, yes, the Stride, yes. Agrimar's fucking Stride. And you would have these boots, and you could run super fucking fast. And then, like, you could put on this other thing, and it would make your mortal strikes, give you a bunch of rage back. And, like, you had this other thing that, like, made your corruption slow your target forever for 60%. And then, like, you take all of that away, and then you go into BFA. I never felt more like just an absolute cucked pussy bitch than I felt at level 116. Like, I lost everything. I lost absolutely fucking everything. It was awful. So, like, yeah, I think this is a pretty good, it's a good insight, especially, like, thinking about how players would react to some of this crazy stuff nowadays, and especially the raid. I really do wish they made this raid. This raid looks really cool. It's disappointing they didn't do it as much because of the initial reaction to Vashir. I don't think a lot of players really cared about losing corruptions. I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't know about that, man. I feel like a lot of people might not have liked corruptions. They didn't like the way that you got. I feel like this was the, like, you know, tell me if this summarizes the way you felt about it. Corruptions were really cool gameplay. Some of the RNG was ridiculous and should have been toned down. But the acquisition method is what really sucked about corruptions. Like, does that adequately summarize the way that you probably feel about them? Yeah. Yeah, but the gameplay was cool. That's the way I felt about it. 4-week cycle, 8-week cycle. It was 8 weeks. And so, yeah. Some of those corruptions were super OP. Yeah, they were insane. Well, anyway, this is a great video. I liked it a lot. And I'll have to watch some more of his videos. Like, there are so many Hirumared videos that I just haven't seen yet. So I've got to get more of that done, man. Remember of full tank runs with Twilight Devastation? Yeah, that was fucking awesome, man. It was amazing. And we knew it was one patch. Yeah, it was. Yeah, also that's another big factor, is that people felt like, oh, it's just one patch. Who cares about it? I'm not going to really invest about this or care about it. The need for the cloak to mitigate the negatives and just how OP they were. I feel like the cloak, like, leveling up the Azurite cloak, or sorry, the cloak wasn't that bad. Like, I didn't hate the cloak that much. Yeah, I just didn't really hate the cloak that much. Am I crazy for that?